The incident occurred precisely 23 minutes into the event Adam Schiff believed would define his political legacy. He had entered the East Room convinced he was the pursuer and the Grand Inquisitor, finally trapping his quarry. For 8 years, he had constructed this narrative and crafted the persona of a solemn intelligence expert, burdened by dark secrets. He believed this press gathering was his victory lap, but he did not realize he was standing upon a trapdoor. The arrangement was unprecedented because the White House had framed it as a summit for transparency and on confrontation. President Trump had summoned his harshest detractors to the front row and offered them the initial opportunity to speak. The press corps erupted into a frenzy, while CNN labeled it a showdown and MSNBC displayed a countdown timer. The mood within the East Room was electric and humid, with the breath of 300 reporters packed tightly together. Adam Schiff sat in the primary row adjusting his cuffs with a notepad on his knee full of impossible questions. He had practiced the rhythm of his voice to sound stern and disappointed and authoritative for this moment. He intended to inquire about the Trump Tower meeting and Manafort and the endless smoke he claimed proved a fire. He glanced around the chamber, nodding to his allies within the press corps, feeling entirely invincible. At exactly 2 in the afternoon, Donald Trump arrived, but he did not march in with his typical rally energy. There was no loud music blasting over the speakers as he walked in slowly carrying a thick black binder. He appeared calm and dangerously composed as he placed the binder on the podium and adjusted the microphone. He looked straight at Adam Schiff and thanked everyone for being there with a steady voice. For 8 years, this nation has been torn apart by a falsehood told repeatedly by those who knew better. It was a lie spread by individuals who hid behind security clearances and classified briefings to deceive the public. Schiff stiffened, expecting an insult, but this felt different because it was not an attack but a preamble. Today, Trump continued, "I am declassifying the truth, including every briefing and memo and intelligence assessment hidden from you." He picked up a remote control and invited Senator Schiff to ask the first question. Schiff stood and took the microphone while feeling the heavy weight of history upon him. "Mr. President," he began, with his voice projecting well, "there have been documented contacts between your campaign and Russian operatives. The American people deserve to know why you concealed these relationships and ignored warnings about compromise. It was a flawless inquiry that assumed guilt and sounded serious while demanding an answer." "That is a great question," Trump replied, without deflecting or attacking the character of his opponent. He simply pressed a button on the remote behind him, and 2 massive screens flickered to life. A document appeared that was not a tweet or graphic, but an official government record stamped "Top Secret." It had a heavy red line drawn through it and a new stamp declaring it declassified on January 15, 2025. This, Trump said, pointing to the screen, is the official transcript of the Gang of Eight briefing from March 2017. The Gang of Eight includes the leaders of both parties and the intelligence committees, and you were present, Adam. We can see your signature on the log as the text on the screen was magnified for all to see. It was crisp and bureaucratic and undeniable, with the subject listing an FBI counterintelligence assessment regarding the Trump campaign. The findings stated that the Bureau has investigated multiple contacts and found no evidence of coordination or conspiracy. The investigation continues, but no credible intelligence supports the hypothesis of coordination between the campaign and the Russian government. The words declaring no evidence were highlighted in yellow as Trump read the date aloud. You sat in a secure room while the FBI looked you in the eye and told you explicitly they found nothing. They told you they had found no evidence of coordination as Trump looked down at Schiff, standing with the microphone. You heard that Trump said, and you signed the paper acknowledging you heard it on that Wednesday. Trump clicked the remote again and said, "Now let us see what you did on Thursday." Schiff felt his heart hammering against his ribs because he knew exactly what was coming next. He remembered the interview and the feeling of power he possessed when he gave it as the man who knew secrets. Looking at the document on the screen provided cold, hard proof of what he had actually been told. He realized with a sickening lurch that the context had changed, and he was no longer the hero. He was now the villain, and millions of people were watching this transformation happen in real time. The air in the East Room seemed to vanish as it was sucked out by the collective gasp of the press. On the screen, the classified briefing log from March remained frozen with the words, "No evidence," looming like a verdict. Adam Schiff stood frozen in the front row, trapped in the glare of the lights, with his mind racing. Donald Trump did not give him the chance to breathe as he pressed the button on the remote again. The screen split to show the FBI briefing document on the left and a video player on the right. "This is the very next day," Trump narrated with a voice that was clinically detached. "Less than 24 hours after you left that secure briefing room, you appeared on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd." The video played, and the audio was crystal clear, booming through the high-quality speakers of the East Room. There was Adam Schiff, looking younger and eager, while leaning into the camera with a grave expression. Chuck the Video Schiff said, "I cannot go into specifics, but I have seen more than circumstantial evidence of collusion." He claimed there is direct evidence of deception and evidence of a relationship that is deeply concerning. Trump paused the video, leaving the face of Adam Schiff frozen on the screen, looking self-righteous and assured. Trump turned to the real Adam Schiff, who was standing 10 feet away looking like a ghost. "That is what you told the country and the world," Trump repeated while pointing to the document. "But the FBI told you 24 hours earlier that there was absolutely no evidence." So Trump asked, leaning over the podium with his eyes locking onto Schiff, "I have a simple yes or no question for you to answer right now. Were you lying to the FBI in the briefing, or were you lying to Chuck Todd on television?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone, as this was not a political debate. This was a binary trap, where two contradictory facts were displayed side by side, and one had to be a lie. Schiff raised the microphone with a hand that was trembling subtly, but visibly to everyone in the room. "Mr. President," Schiff said with a voice straining for authority, "you are cherry-picking a single initial assessment. As you know, intelligence evolves, and there were contacts that raised concerns." "Stop," Trump commanded, with a tone that was not a shout, but a snap of the whip. "Do not use the word evolved because the FBI said no evidence while you said direct evidence. That is not evolution, Adam. That is pure fabrication." Trump continued with his voice rising in intensity. "You looked the American people in the eye and used your position on the Intelligence Committee to sell a lie. You told them to trust you because you had seen the secret papers knowing they could not see them. You banked your entire career on the fact that these documents would stay classified forever. Well, they are not classified anymore because the shield is gone," Trump said, gesturing to the screen. "You scared the country and told grandmothers in Ohio that their president was a Russian agent. You told soldiers that their commander was a traitor and caused millions to lose faith in their government. You did it," Trump said, pointing to the date, knowing it was not true. "You walked out of that secure room and put on your makeup and sat in that chair and lied." Schiff tried to interrupt again, citing the Mueller report, finding multiple instances of concern. The Mueller report found no conspiracy. Trump roared, slamming his hand on the podium, just like the FBI told you. Just like the CIA told you, and just like everyone told you from the very beginning. Trump took a breath, composing himself as he looked out at the press corps furiously typing. But it was not just once, was it? Trump asked softly to the room. If it was just one mistake, maybe we could forgive it, or assume you were confused. He clicked the remote, and the screen changed to reveal a timeline stretching across the massive display. Above the line were red dots representing intelligence briefings, and below were blue dots representing TV appearances. We checked the records and matched every single time you went into the Schiff with your television appearances. In May 2017, the briefing says no changes to assessment, yet you went on CNN claiming evidence is hiding in plain sight. In July 2017, the briefing says the Steele dossier is unverified, yet you claimed it was proving to be accurate. It is a pattern, Adam, and not a mistake, but a deliberate strategy, Trump said. Schiff stood there with the microphone feeling like a piece of lead in his hand. He realized with terrifying clarity that Trump was not just debating him, but dismantling him completely. He was taking the one thing Schiff relied on, which was his credibility, and turning it into evidence of fraud. "You were not an investigator," Trump said, looking at him with something approaching pity. "You were a screenwriter, writing a spy novel for CNN, and used the seal of Congress to sell it." "But the book is over," Trump said, "and we are just getting to the plot twist. Because lying about the briefings was not enough for you, as you had to leak them too." A new document appeared on the screen showing a phone log that made Schiff's stomach drop. He knew those numbers, and he knew those dates as the trap closed around his neck. The phone log on the screen was bad, but Donald Trump was not ready to talk about leaks yet. He wanted to finish the autopsy of the lie first, and let the audience understand the scale of deception. "One lie is a mistake," Trump said, clicking the remote to clear the single document. "Two lies might be a coincidence, but what Adam Schiff did was an industry." The screen behind Trump transformed, and the static documents were replaced by a dynamic scrolling graphic. It looked like a stock ticker, but instead of prices, it showed dates and network logos and quotes. "My staff did a little project going back through the last 8 years," Trump explained, gesturing to the data. "We found every single time you went on television and claimed you had seen evidence of collusion." He paused, letting the timeline scroll endlessly as the sheer volume of appearances became apparent. "We counted 227 times," Trump said, letting the number hang in the air. 227 times you looked into a camera and told the American people the proof was overwhelming. Trump pressed a button to watch the highlight reel, and a video began to play immediately. It was a supercut, edited for maximum impact, showing Schiff on CNN claiming he had seen direct evidence. The clips came faster and faster, showing Schiff in different ties and different studios repeating the same line. The background changed and the interviewer changed, but the drumbeat of deception never did. A digital counter in the corner of the screen ticked up with each mention of evidence. Adam Schiff stood in the front room, forced to watch a montage of his own dishonesty. It was agonizing because the cumulative effect was devastating when seen all at once, back to back. Seen individually over 8 years, they seemed authoritative. But now they looked like the ravings of a con man. The counter hit 227, and the screen froze on a close-up of Schiff, looking smug. Trump turned back to the real Schiff, whose face was currently drained of all color. 227 times, Trump said softly, and we checked the briefing logs for every single date. He pointed to the screen, noting that every single briefing said no evidence found. There was never a moment where the FBI or CIA told you they had found a conspiracy. So Senator Trump asked, what ancient evidence were you talking about? And was it invisible or imaginary? Schiff cleared his throat, trying to summon the indignation that had served him so well for so long. Mr. President, the intelligence picture is complex, and there were contacts that raised grave concerns. I was speaking to the threat to national security, even if it did not meet the legal standard. You said collusion. Trump's voice boomed, cutting through the spin immediately. You did not say counterintelligence concerns. You said you had proof of a crime, and that I was a traitor. That is not evolving intelligence, Senator. That is systematic lying, Trump said with icy calm. You built a career on a phantom and raised millions of dollars claiming to have a secret. The room was silent as reporters who had booked Schiff for those segments looked down at their notepads. But lying on TV is just dirty politics, Trump said, moving back to the podium. What you did next, Trump said, reaching for the remote, is a crime. The timeline of appearances vanished, and the screen went black before a new image appeared. This one was a complex network diagram with a picture of Adam Schiff in the center. Lines radiated out from him, connecting to logos of major news organizations like the New York Times. Let us talk about the leaks, Trump said, explaining that the FBI investigates when classified info appears in print. Trump pointed to the screen describing the phone records from the FBI leak investigation declassified that day. He zoomed in on a specific section of the web showing a call placed in December 2016. A call is placed from your personal cell phone to a CNN producer lasting 15 minutes. The very next morning, CNN breaks a story about Intel chiefs presenting claims of Russian compromise. The story cites sources familiar with the briefing as Trump looked directly at Schiff. You were the source, Adam, he said, moving to the next data point on the screen. A call from your office line to the New York Times lasted 23 minutes on December 18th. 2 days later, the Times runs a story citing congressional sources about shared evidence. It is a perfect pattern of call followed by story. Trump said, walking to the edge of the stage. You did not just lie about the briefings, but you leaked them to your friends. You took classified secrets you swore to protect and gave them to the media to hurt me. Then you would go on television and confirm your own leak by saying the report is disturbing. Schiff stepped forward, arguing that these are inferences drawn from standard interactions with the press. Members of Congress speak to reporters every day as part of our oversight duty, he insisted. Oversight. Trump snapped back, saying leaking classified intelligence about a sitting president is a felony. You weaponized your security clearance and used government secrets as political ammunition, Trump said. You knew the FBI investigation was finding nothing, so you leaked misleading snippets to keep the narrative alive. That is not oversight, Senator. That is propaganda, Trump said, pointing to a specific line. You called the Washington Post an hour before they ran the story about Mike Flynn's calls. A felony leak ruined a man's life, and you were on the phone with the reporter beforehand. Did you break the law to get a headline, Trump asked, as Schiff stood silent. Schiff could not answer because to deny it was perjury and to admit it was a confession. He stood there while the silence stretched out, damning him more than any answer could. You see, Trump told the audience he cannot answer because the phone records do not lie. For 8 years, you told everyone I was the security threat who could not be trusted. But looking at this map, it appears the real security threat was the committee chairman. You leaked and you lied, and you got caught. Trump said, turning back to the podium. But leaks are bad, he said, while fabricating evidence in an official hearing is worse. Let us talk about the parody, Donald Trump said, adjusting the papers on his podium. The atmosphere in the East Room had shifted from shock to a grim fascination. The reporters were watching their high priest of truth be defrocked in real time. We have seen the lies and leaks, but now let us talk about the theater. He clicked the remote, and the web of phone records vanished, to be replaced by a video. Trump announced the date of the impeachment hearing where millions of people were watching. You remember this, do you not, Adam, as you decided to read the transcript of my call? The screen split again, showing the official transcript on the left and the video on the right. Let us listen to what you told the American people, Trump said as he pressed play. Video Schiff looked into the camera and began to read with dramatic flair about a favor. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent only 7 times. So listen. Good. Trump paused the video and repeated the phrase, make up dirt 7 times. I am looking at the transcript. Adam and I do not see those words anywhere. I do not see make up dirt or listen good or 7 times in the text. You made them up, Trump said flatly, as you sat in a congressional hearing. You used the seal of the United States to read a fictional script you wrote. You put words in the mouth of the president that were never spoken as Schiff stepped forward. Mr. President, as I stated at the time, that was a parody meant to convey gravity. Parody, Trump interrupted incredulously, reminding him he is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. It is not Saturday Night Live. It is a legal proceeding, Trump said, pulling a card. 63% of people polled believed those were my actual words, because you did not joke. You said the essence of what the president communicates is this, and you tricked them. You fabricated evidence in an official hearing to make me sound like a mob boss. That is not oversight, Trump said, pointing a finger at Schiff. That is fraud. You have legal immunity for what you say in Congress under the speech or debate clause. You can lie on the floor of the House and not go to jail, but it does not protect your reputation and proves you manufacture reality to get what you want. Schiff stood silent as the defense of parody looked pathetic next to the real text. It looked like a stunt that backfired, but Trump moved on to the next topic. You did not just make up the call, you also made up how it started. Let us talk about the whistleblower as the screen changed to a new timeline. The impeachment started because we were told a brave independent patriot saw something wrong. And you went on television on September 17th and were asked if you had spoken to him. Trump played the clip where Sam Stein asks if you heard from the whistleblower. Adam Schiff replies that we have not spoken directly with the whistleblower. We have not spoken directly, Trump repeated, noting the definitive answer before clicking the remote. Now let us look at the visitor logs for your office from that same time period. A document appeared showing a log from the Intelligence Committee, Secure Spaces, on August 12th. 1 month before the complaint was filed, the whistleblower called your staff director for 43 minutes. On August 14th, the whistleblower met with your top aides in your Capitol Hill office. On August 28th, your staff helped him find a lawyer and draft the complaint. You did not just speak to him, Adam. You coached him and knew exactly who he was. Your team helped him write it, and then you went on TV and lied. That is a direct, verifiable lie about the origins of an impeachment, Trump stated. You were not the judge, Adam. You were the architect who built the trap. You baited the hook and pretended to be a neutral observer when it sprang. That is coordination, and hiding it is deception, Trump said as Schiff opened his mouth. Schiff stopped realizing that splitting hairs about the definition of spoken with implied guilt. You coordinated with the accuser and lied about it to try to overturn an election. But speaking of elections, Trump said, darkening his voice, let us talk about the big one. let us talk about 2020 and the laptop and the 51 spies. The air in the room grew heavier as everyone knew this was the final blow. The Russia investigation and impeachment were history, but the Hunter Biden laptop story was still fresh. That was the lie that might have actually changed history. Trump continued, "You love to talk about Russian disinformation, Adam, as it is your favorite phrase. But in October 2020, you did not just talk about it, you created it." Trump clicked the remote and the screen went black before he declared, "This the smoking gun." The East Room was quiet enough to hear the hum of the hard drives. Donald Trump stood at the podium, shifting from aggressive prosecutor to something quieter. He looked like a man holding the final piece of a puzzle that would change everything. "We have talked about Russia and Ukraine and leaks, but there is one more lie. This one did not just smear a president, it saved a candidate and changed an election." He clicked the remote, and the screen flared to life with a document from October 2020. 2020. Trump set the scene 3 weeks before the presidential election when the Post published the story. It detailed emails and photos and evidence of foreign business dealings on a laptop. You knew exactly what to do, Adam, and you went to your playbook and yelled, "Russia." This is a classified briefing log from the day the story broke, showing the FBI briefing. You were there when the document confirmed forensic analysis showing the data is genuine. The Bureau found no intelligence indicating the laptop is part of a Russian disinformation campaign. The FBI told you it was real, and they told you it was not Russia. They told you it was authentic, and not a hack, Trump said with a hard voice. Trump clicked the remote to show October 16th when you went on CNN with Wolf Blitzer. The video played, showing Schiff looking grave, while claiming the smear comes from the Kremlin. Trump repeated your claim that the origins of the smear are clearly from the Kremlin. You sat there knowing the FBI told you it wasn't the Kremlin, and you lied. But you did not just lie, you organized a cover-up, Trump said, clicking the remote. A new document appeared which was an email chain subpoenaed from your committee staff. It was from your staff director to former intelligence directors stating an urgent need for a letter. Trump read the email, stating the chairman feels it is critical to frame this story. "We need a statement from senior intel officials to give the media a hook before the debate." You wrote the letter, Adam, and you got 51 former officials to sign it. The letter said the laptop had all the classic earmarks of Russian disinformation, which you knew was false. You organized it, and your staff drafted the talking points to support a known lie. You had seen the FBI report, yet you pushed this narrative, and look what happened. Trump showed a montage of headlines and Twitter banning the New York Post story. Joe Biden cited the letter on the debate stage to dismiss the laptop completely. You censored the truth and used your security clearance to trick the media and tech companies. That is not oversight or politics, that is election interference, Trump said, walking to the edge. You rigged the information war knowing the laptop was real because the FBI told you. But you decided the American people were not allowed to know that. So you created fake experts. Schiff looked at the floor as the internal emails exposed the sausage-making of deception. It was not national security. It was a political operation designed to cheat the voters. You cheated history and used the Intelligence Committee to do it. Trump said simply. Trump walked back to the podium and placed his hands on either side, looking exhausted. "We are done with the slides," he said, and the screens went black instantly. The room was silent as Trump looked at Adam Schiff in the darkened, intimate space. The spectacle was over, and now there was only the reckoning, leaving only cold reality. Adam Schiff stood in the front row as a solitary figure in a sea of reporters. The reporters were no longer looking at him with admiration, but with clinical detachment. "We have gone through the record," Trump said quietly, listing the briefings and transcripts and logs. "So, Senator Schiff, I want to ask you the question you have been asking me." Trump paused and let the silence stretch until it was uncomfortable for everyone in the room. "How many times did you lie to the American people?" Trump asked finally. Schiff opened his mouth, but nothing came out, as Trump continued his line of questioning. "Was it the 227 times you claimed evidence of collusion that did not exist? Was it the 43 times you leaked classified secrets and then confirmed them on TV? Was it when you fabricated a fake transcript of my call and read it as fact? Was it when you coordinated with the whistleblower and then told the country you never spoke? Was it when you organized 51 spies to call the real laptop Russian disinformation? How many times, Adam, did you use your security clearance as a weapon Trump demanded? How many times did you deceive the people who pay your salary while calling me a liar? You tore this country apart, and the whole time it was you holding the smoking gun. You were the one hiding the truth, and you were the disinformation machine." The room was frozen as 78 million people watching at home held their breath. They waited for the rebuttal from the skilled debater, but Adam Schiff said nothing. He stood there pale and small under the weight of the documents and dates. There was no spin that could survive the receipts, and no context to explain the signatures. Trump watched him for a long moment and then shook his head. "You do not have an answer because the answer is thousands," Trump said softly. "You lied so many times you forgot what the truth looked like." Trump said, gathering papers. "The American people deserved the truth, and an intelligence committee that protected them, not gaslit them. Instead, they got you," Trump said, looking at Schiff with finality as he ended the conference. Trump turned and walked out of the East Room without looking back, as the spell broke. The room erupted into chaos as reporters jumped to their feet shouting questions at Schiff. "Senator, did you leak the Flynn call? And is that your signature on the log?" Adam Schiff did not answer but grabbed his notepad and pushed toward the side exit. His aides tried to form a wedge, but the swarm of cameras was too thick. He kept his head down, fleeing the scene of his own destruction, like a man outrunning a tsunami. The image of him escaping into the hallway was captured by 100 cameras. Adam Schiff, the man who demanded the truth, was now running away from it. Within minutes, the internet exploded, and the clip of the confrontation hit millions of views. The hashtag stating Schiff lied trended globally, as the receipts were downloaded across every platform. For 8 years, Adam Schiff had been the hunter, but in 90 minutes he became the hunted. Donald Trump had turned him into the hunted with nothing but a projector and declassified paper. The narrative had shattered, and there was no putting the secrets back in the box. The press conference ended at a specific time, and Schiff's career was autopsied immediately. Donald Trump had walked out of the East Room, leaving behind a massive digital crater. The Schiff dossier, containing every lie and leak, was uploaded to the White House website. The server crashed 3 times in the first 20 minutes due to the immense traffic. The reaction on cable news was a mix of shock and desperate scrambling. Fox News was in a victory lap, showing the side-by-side clips of the hearing. But the real devastation was happening on the networks that had built Schiff up. On CNN, the anchors looked shell-shocked as they looked at the briefing logs. Documents proving he knew there was no evidence were now undeniable with his signature on them. A legal analyst admitted it is hard to reconcile because the signature is right there. MSNBC tried to pivot, claiming this was a weaponization of classification, but it failed. A former prosecutor noted, "The documents are public record, and you cannot cherry-pick a signature." He was in the room and he knew and he lied, so it is proof. By the next morning, the dam broke and 17 ethics complaints were filed with the Senate. Watchdog groups that usually targeted Trump were filing against Schiff, citing abuse of security clearance. The Department of Justice announced a review of the leak investigation based on the phone records. The most brutal blow came from his own colleagues in the Senate, who hated being embarrassed. Schiff had embarrassed the institution by using the Intelligence Committee as a partisan toy. A resolution was introduced to remove Schiff from the Intelligence Committee, and the vote was stunning. 67 to 33 voted to remove him, with 17 Democrats crossing the aisle. They were not protecting him anymore, they were cutting him loose to save themselves. The polling in California confirmed the collapse as his approval rating plummeted 29 points. It was the fastest drop in the history of modern polling, as the Post covered the story. The Washington Post published a massive, interactive feature, allowing readers to scroll through all the lies. Schiff went into hiding, canceling his town halls and refusing almost all interview requests. The invincible senator and giant of the resistance had been reduced to a cautionary tale. 6 months after the press conference, Adam Schiff stood at a podium in a hotel ballroom. The room was half empty, with no cheering crowds, just a tired-looking man. He read from a prepared statement announcing he would not seek re-election to the Senate. He did not mention the documents, but talked about new chapters and passing the torch. Everyone knew he was quitting because internal polling showed him losing by 38 points. A newcomer named Katie Porter had launched a campaign with the slogan, "Truth Matters." Her ads were just clips of Trump's press conference, and she did not have to speak. Schiff finished his speech and walked off the stage, marking a pathetic end to his career. 1 year later, Donald Trump sat on the patio at Mar-a-Lago being interviewed by a historian. The historian asked if he had any regrets about what he did to Adam Schiff. Trump smiled the smile of a man who had set the record straight and sipped his drink. "I did not do anything to him," Trump said. "I just turned on the lights." He destroyed himself because he thought he was safe lying about classified information. He forgot that the president has the ultimate power to declassify and check his homework. The historian asked if he felt vindicated, but Trump corrected him, saying the country is vindicated. The declassification showed them who the real liars were and fixed the deception. The lesson is that the receipts do not lie, and eventually you get caught. Schiff thought he was the prosecutor, but he forgot to check the evidence first. The legacy of Adam Schiff was cemented as the man who lied 227 times. He became a verb in Washington, meaning to lie about classified info until caught. Congress passed an act mandating members sign affidavits when discussing classified briefings. The American people finally knew that the answer to how many times was simply too many.